Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
I demand a normal mission. The sun hasn't even risen yet, and the Hokage already has a lot on his plate. At the moment, he's trying to calm down one Jinchuriki and get rid of that noisy boy under the pretext of a mission. I am the only one who can make demands here. You were given a mission, rejoice, but if you continue to get on my nerves, I will send you back to the academy. A woman with amber eyes and light hair tied into two low ponytails sat at a table in a spacious office. Opposite her stood Team 7, consisting of 4 people. A pink-haired kunoichi with emerald eyes, Sakura Haruno, a brunette with tousled hair at the back of his head and black eyes, Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, a blue-eyed blonde with 3 strange stripes on each cheek and, finally, the captain of this team, Kakashi Hatake, who was always buried in his favorite book with suspicious content. And I say that I will not carry out this mission. How much longer? How long will you make us munch on grass? I am a ninja, the future Hokage, not a lawn mower. The blonde leaned his hands on the table. There's nothing to be done. Everyone goes through this. So go ahead and sing. The woman was already getting pretty fed up with the current situation, which unfolded every time these 4 appeared in her office. I don't understand you, Granny. You saw for yourself what I'm capable of, so why are you giving me such an easy task? I demand a minimum A-rank mission. Naruto. You're enough. Now, get your hands on your feet and get out of here before I kick you out, and before I complete the mission so that your spirit is not seen in the village. Muttering something under his breath, the boy turned and walked out of the office. The rest of the team sighed and followed him. Walking through the forest, Naruto still couldn't calm down. Oh, Kami, aren't you tired yet? The kunoichi turned to the blonde. We're already tired of listening to your muttering. Sakura-chan, don't you want to complete a mission higher than D rank? Tsunade-sama already told you that as long as we are genin, nothing else will happen to us. Also, don't think that shinobi only accompany and save people. There are also missions to eliminate missing nin, and sometimes civilians, if they have learned too much, the girl said, narrowing her eyes. You, Sakura-chan, make it all sound like shinobi are bloodthirsty killers. Actually, that's true, Yujiro Tonkaki, Sasuke, who had remained silent until now, noted. Shut up, team. No one asked you. No one would even take you on a lawnmower mission. Naruto said, turning around and pointing a finger at his teammate. Why is that? He asked, surprised. Do you think anyone would be interested in looking at such a perpetually dissatisfied and gloomy lawnmower? I'm a different matter. The blonde shouted, pointing his thumb at himself. They'd just tear me apart. If I were you, I wouldn't be so self-confident. If you were alone, you wouldn't have been sent on such a mission. Be glad that thanks to us, you weren't sent back to the academy. What? And you? Quiet, Kakashi stopped abruptly before he could continue. Sasuke and Sakura immediately followed his example. Eh? What's wrong? Asked the blonde. The answer came from kunai flying at them from all sides. The boys dodged and tried to deflect the weapons flying at them. Kakashi disappeared from sight just as the enemies appeared. There were 3 of them, all wearing long, black cloaks that completely hid their identities. They simply stood and looked at the children in front of them. Until one of them spoke up. Is this really the famous team number 7? He was most likely addressing his comrades, as the genins decided. Yes, it's definitely them. They're just small yet. We picked a great time. They won't be able to resist this technique now, and the 6th can't handle it alone, the Nukenin standing between his comrades replied. Then let's get started, why drag it out, responded the man, who had been silent until then. The criminals took off, heading towards the Konoha shinobi. Naruto and Sasuke approached Sakura and prepared to repel the attack. Did you hear what they were talking about? They were kind of strange, don't you think? Asked the owner of pink hair. Sakura-chan, they are bandits, what else should they be if not completely crazy? It's normal, Naruto smiled and created 10 clones. Yes, but, Sasuke interrupted her, activating the Sharingan. Be careful. They're already driving me crazy. The boys jumped up and ran towards the enemy, who had already split up by that time. Uzumaki, with all his shadow copies, pounced on one of the bandits and crushed him with numbers, not allowing him to rise from the ground. Uchiha threw 3 kunai with a fishing line attached to the handle at his opponent and, having tied the missing nin to a tree, attacked with a fireball. Sakura, approaching the enemy, threw a couple of kunai at him, which the man easily parried. When they approached each other at arm's length, the girl swung, preparing to hit her opponent in the face. He was already preparing to parry the blow, when he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. The enemy bent over, trying to reduce the pain and analyze what had happened, but did not have time. The kunoichi made a sweep and twisted his arms behind his back, thereby neutralizing the last missing nin of the 3. All this time, Kakashi, sitting in a tree, was watching the battle. Not bad, but something is not right here, he drawled, trying to understand what is troubling him so much. A sudden guess makes him shudder and go to help his students before something irreparable happens. We dealt with them a little too easily, don't you think? Asked the kunoichi, still sitting on the defeated man's back. Sakura-chan is right. Are they really former shinobi? Asked the blonde, still sitting on a pile of his clones. Maybe they're newbies, Uchiha suggested, tying up the burnt enemy. Beginners are no match for experienced lawn mowers, the Jinchuriki shouted, embellishing his words with a triumphant laugh. Naruto, you're back with your lawn mowers, Haruna sighed. Eh? What's wrong with them? They're the most indispensable thing in the household. An NDA? And why is she so irreplaceable? Well, how is it? I mowed her grass and it was beautiful. I needed to go somewhere, I got in and drove off. Dobe, why do we need to ride lawn mowers when we shinobi can move faster than any vehicle? Sasuke interjected. So move around as you wish, and don't interfere in my affairs. Uzumaki jumped to his feet and shouted. At this point Sakura couldn't help but burst out laughing. Sasuke only chuckled in his favorite manner, and Naruto just stood there, not understanding his teammates' amusement. Suddenly, the enemies evaporated in a cloud of smoke, dropping the pink-haired kunoichi and the Jinchuriki on their butts, with all the clones also disappearing under them. Kakashi jumped out of the bushes, standing with his back to his team so that they now formed a square together. All the team members tensed up, expecting an attack. Everything happened too fast. In an instant, the criminals appeared, surrounding the Konoha shinobi, holding a kunai in front of them. Reacting faster than the guys, Kakashi was about to rush towards the enemies, hoping to stop the attack, but he was unable to move from the spot. Looking down, he saw that their legs were held by incomprehensible black symbols. The Nuknins synchronously formed seals, muttering some words under their breath. They did it so quietly and quickly that with each passing second they made the shinobi's bodies tense up more and more. The symbols began to move and began to slide down the center behind the 7th team. From the point where they connected, a red glow began to spread, completely covering the 4 from Konoha. Only a few seconds passed, but when the light disappeared, the enemies were gone. Are they really newbies? Did they use a technique to escape? Naruto asked disappointedly. I don't think so, Sakura answered, looking around. Does it seem to me alone that it's gotten darker? No, it's just evening now, Sasuke said calmly, as if it were a matter of course. But how is that possible? We left at dawn, walked for about 2 hours and fought for no more than half an hour. So it must be just approaching lunchtime. The kunoichi suddenly froze, staring at one point. What happened, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked. The girl raised her hand and pointed to the tree to which one of the enemy shinobi had recently been tied. How is that possible? Uchiha said in shock, not taking his eyes off the object his teammate had pointed out. Huh? What are you talking about? What's there? I can't see anything. Looking at his friends in turn, the Jinchuriki asked. Sakura grabbed him by the ear, pulled him closer to the plant and, grabbing his head with both hands, poked her nose right into the place where Sasuke's fire technique had struck. Looking closely and still not seeing anything, Naruto stared questioningly at the kunoichi. Take a good look, she pointed at the trunk, do you see? A tree? No. Haruno growled, already angry at her friend's lack of intelligence. Looking at the tree again, the blonde tried to understand what was wrong with this plant. Sakura sighed heavily, realizing that this would take a long time, and still explained. Remember the fight? Sasuke-kun tied the missing nin he was fighting to a tree, and then used katan, which means the trunk should be charred. Also, there isn't a single kunai in the entire clearing, and we threw a lot of those too. It feels like there hasn't been a fight here for a long time. Well, they could have taken the kunai with them. They held us back with technology all day, so why not heal the tree? What if they are good rookie bandits? Naruto, if they were good, they wouldn't be bandits. Where do you get such confidence? The Jinchuriki narrowed his eyes. It doesn't matter. Let's go already, Sasuke interrupted them and, walking forward, continued, we've already wasted the whole day. Come on, Sakura wanted to object, but she was interrupted. Let's go back to Konoha, Kakashi said. What? Why is that? Naruto didn't understand. Didn't Granny Tsunade say that she wouldn't let us go on an unfulfilled mission? If my assumptions are correct, then we need to worry about something else, the Jonin replied. Why? Did something happen? The blonde persisted. Sakura, Hataki turned to his student, you also noticed the strange behavior of those bandits. You must understand what exactly worries me. Probably, the kunoichi answered uncertainly after thinking for a bit, but I don't think it's possible. This is the only explanation that emerges from what we have. Damn it, stop speaking in riddles, Databeo. Naruto couldn't take it anymore and shouted. What's impossible? What's going on? Explain it to us too, we don't understand. Speak for yourself, Yuzuritanki, Uchiha interjected. Come on, Sasuke, I can see that you don't understand anything either, Uzumaki says, grinning. Well, it's not certain, but if I understood correctly, then we were somehow sent to another time and, most likely, to the future, Sakura says uncertainly. The boys looked at her questioningly, and then turned their gaze to Sensei. Receiving an affirmative nod, they looked at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or. They hadn't decided yet how to react if this was true. To the future? The blonde asked again. To the future? The blonde asks again. But this is just an assumption, the kunoichi waved her hands, we are not sure about this, but most likely it is so. Why the future, and not the past, for example? Sasuke interrupted the prolonged silence. When they saw us, one of them asked, is this really the famous team number 7? To which the second replied, yes, it's definitely them. They're just little ones still, which means they knew us as adults, and besides, we're not so famous yet that all sorts of bandits would recognize us, Haruno answered, mimicking the voices of the Nuke-nin. Are there really such techniques that allow you to send someone to the future? Naruto asked in surprise after a minute of thought. It turns out that there is, Sakura answered, shrugging her shoulders. Let's go, we still need to make sure that our guess is correct, Kakashi said and, turning around, walked in the direction of Konoha. After 2 hours of walking, the 4 shinobi reached the village gates. Young guys were sitting at the post, looking at the new arrivals with surprise. Still not quite believing his eyes, one of them led the team to the Hokage residence. On the way they looked around, noticing that the village was really different people, buildings. And even on the Hokage rock there were 2 more faces, which they could not see, since they had already arrived at the residence. The building itself, like everything in the village, had also changed. They were eager to find out who the current Hokage was and what time exactly they had arrived. Knocking on the thick door, the escort entered, asking team number 7 to wait. A few seconds later he came out. Lord Hokage asks you to come in. And having said goodbye, he left. Already in the Hokage's office, the entire team froze, not believing their eyes. Good evening, said the man, sitting at a wide table covered with tall stacks of papers, smiling with all 32 teeth. Standing there with their eyes wide and their mouths open in surprise, the team quietly exhaled, starting to come to their senses. The kunoichi reached out to Naruto's cheek and pinched him, freezing in that position. Ow! Sakura-chan, why did you do that? Uzumaki shouted, trying to pry his teammate's hand off his cheek. I want to make sure this isn't a dream, the girl answered, turning her head towards him. Yes? Then why did you pinch me? Hearing the screams of their friends, Sasuke and Kakashi, sighing heavily, began to watch this restless couple. And the Hokage, smiling, looked at each of the arrivals in turn. "I already told you to make sure this isn't a dream," the owner of pink hair repeated calmly. "Well, are you convinced?" The Jinchuriki still did not calm down. "Yes, I am convinced." "Calm down both of you," Sensei's voice interrupted them, "we have more important problems right now." Everyone fell silent and looked at the man, who was still smiling at the memories that had flooded back. Realizing that everyone was looking at him and clearly waiting for something, he cleared his throat and spoke. "Well," he began, scratching the back of his head, "as you probably already understood, I am Naruto Uzumaki, the 7th Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. I am 33 now, so you can calculate for yourself how many years you have been transported." "What else?" "Oh yeah, I will call the rest of the 7th team here now and we will decide everything." He called one of the jonin and gave an order, he bowed and disappeared, and the man again returned his attention to the guests. "Well, while we wait for them, you can ask whatever you want." "Are you really the Hokage?" "You are me?" "Seriously?" The blonde still couldn't believe the truth of what was happening. For as long as he can remember, he always dreamed of becoming Hokage, and suddenly it turns out that his dream will come true. "It's a bit of a shame that I have to wait another 20 years for this, but that's even better. First, I'll grow up, become even stronger, marry Sakura-chan, and then before I know it, I'll become Hokage, Databeo." Naruto mentally made plans for the future. "I really am the Hokage," the 7th said with a gentle smile. "Well, did you get married?" the younger Uzumaki asked, running up to the table and leaning on it. "Yes," the man replied, looking at the framed photograph on the corner of the table. Just as the guy took a deep breath and prepared to ask a new question, there was a knock on the door and, without waiting for permission, a gray-haired man in a mask entered the office, but now both of his eyes were visible, followed by a pink-haired woman with a short haircut, in a red chipao. On her forehead there was a small purple diamond. The last to enter was a man with black hair, just below the level of the chin. The bangs covered the left eye, and the right, like pure onyx, appraisingly walked over everyone present in the room. The former Haruno looked at the guests in shock and could not believe that this was true. To make sure, she raised her hand and pinched the cheek of the head of the Uchiha clan standing next to her. The man, looking at the revived past, gently touched the woman's hand, making her relax. This action attracted the attention of the guests from the past, but they were prevented from thinking about its meaning by a voice. "Oh, here you are," the Hokage continued, smiling his trademark smile with all 32 teeth. "Well, now that everyone is here, we can discuss the most important question. Or rather, two." "Eh? What are these?" the younger Jinchuriki asked, not understanding. "How did you get here?" the elder Uzumaki asked. "Ah. So that's it. The guy who was on duty at the gate brought us." "What have you forgotten already?" Naruto asked mockingly. "I'm not talking about how you got to the residence, but about how you ended up in our time." "And so it is." "Sakura-chan, you understood everything there, explain it to them," the future Hokage said, looking at his teammate. Realizing that she was being addressed, the young Kunoichi shuddered and, tearing her gaze away from her adult self, turned to face the table and began her story. "At sunrise we were sent on a mission. About 2 hours into the forest we were attacked by 3 missing nin. They knew us, as we understood from their conversation, from the future. We fought them, but they used some technique. First we were pinned to the ground with seals, and then, when they converged at one point, a red light poured out from there, engulfing us. When it dissipated, it was evening, and the enemy shinobi were gone. We examined the area, but there was no damage caused during the battle, and we decided that we had ended up in the future. To check this, we went back to Konoha." The girl sighed and tensed up under the gazes directed at her person. "So that's how it is," the Hokage thought. "What makes you think that you ended up in the future, only on undamaged terrain?" Sasuke asked suspiciously in a steely voice, thereby drawing interested glances at himself. From their conversation, the boy from the Uchiha clan said, crossing his arms over his chest and looking the man in the eye. "They called us the famous team number 7. There was a silence, which was broken by Lord Hokage. "Well, I'll give the task to several jonin to find and bring back all the scrolls with time travel techniques. It's already late, let's discuss the rest tomorrow." the pink-haired medic spoke up. Now we need to decide where they'll spend the night. I have already arranged for a room to be prepared for them, the fair-haired man replied. Since our guests have had a hard day today, why don't you go and rest? I will ask that you be escorted. A man appeared in the office, whom the elder Uzumaki asked to escort team number 7 from the past. Nodding, the shinobi asked them to follow him and left the office. The 4 shinobi followed his example. Sasuke was the last to leave. Stopping at the door, he glanced at everyone who remained. His attention was drawn to the crest located on the back of Sakura from this time. For a moment, it seemed to him that he forgot how to breathe, so unexpected and incomprehensible was what he saw for him. He noticed that the woman, as well as the man in the black cloak, were looking at him in response, and therefore, frowning, he went after his teammates. After the door to the office closed, silence hung in the room, which Kakashi dared to break. "Do you believe them?" he asked, looking at his students. "I'm not sure, but," the owner of Emerald Eyes hesitated. "We'll decide everything tomorrow." "It's really late today," Naruto said, massaging the bridge of his nose with his fingers. "Yes. Until tomorrow," said Sasuke, not wanting to stay in the office any longer, took Sakura's hand and hurried home. Kakashi followed them, saying goodbye. In the apartment where Team 7 is located, the shinobi will spend a long time thinking about everything that happened to them during such a short, but at the same time long day. Overall, Team 7 was happy with their temporary shelter. It was better than spending the night on the street. Naruto liked the apartment the most, since they only had 2 bedrooms with 2 beds in each. He already had a clear picture in his head of how he and Sakura would sleep in the same room. Uzumaki spent more than half an hour casting loving glances at the only representative of the fair sex in the room, completely unaware of his comrade's aloofness. "It's all going too smoothly," Kakashi said unexpectedly loudly, causing even Sasuke to flinch. "What are you talking about, sensei?" Naruto asked immediately. "Some people show up at the Hokage's office and say they came from the past. And what does the Hokage do? He gives these people an apartment without any problems and allows them to stay in the village for an indefinite period, without even checking them in any way." I didn't expect anything else from Naruto, Uchiha decided to be sarcastic. "What?" Uzumaki jumped up from his seat, intending to reach across the dining table and strangle the offender, but he was prevented from doing so. "You think they didn't really believe us?" Sakura asked, grabbing the Jinchuriki's face with one hand just in time, forcing the restlessly kicking creature to sit back down. "I hope so," Kakashi replied. "Eh?" Naruto finally calmed down and looked at Sensei with confusion. The time smoothly passed midnight. Kakashi ordered everyone to go to bed. Hearing the words about sleep, Uzumaki perked up again and began to dance around Sakura, saying that she would spend the night with him in the same room. To everyone's surprise, the kunoichi did not object and did not say in response that she would sleep with Sasuke-kun, but sat quietly, staring absently at one point. Hatake decided that the girl was simply thinking about everything that had happened during the day, because even he still found it difficult to accept. "Naruto, Sasuke will be sleeping in your room with you," Kakashi tried to calm the guy down. Unfortunately, he only made more noise, shouting for Sensei to change his mind. When the Jonin refused once again, Uzumaki trudged towards the kitchen exit, throwing old pervert over his shoulder, and ran into the first room he came across, afraid of being killed. Hatake was seriously angered by Naruto's words, so the next second only Sasuke and Sakura were left in the room. Uchiha peered into Haruno's features, trying to somehow understand what he had seen earlier before leaving the Hokage's office, but he had a hard time doing so. No, he had always been honest with himself, so he admitted the fact that Sakura was quite pretty, and no matter how much their former classmates, especially Yamanaka, laughed at her, Sasuke couldn't agree and say that the girl's forehead was too big and spoiled her. Only now the guy began to wonder what Haruno would be like if, running away from ridicule and bullying, she had not started to imitate her best and only friend. Uchiha remembered how she was embarrassed to come up to him and even look at him once more, how she blushed, trying to squeeze out at least a word, just to ask to borrow a pencil. Imagining the current Sakura like this, he thought that she, so simple and at the same time unusual, not like others, would have liked him much more. But the girl has changed and now, Because of her sympathy for him and the fear of being a laughingstock again, she commits thoughtless and stupid actions that overshadow all her good qualities. That's right, initially the kunoichi was just imitating the other girls, trying to fit in, but over the course of 5 long years of studying at the academy, 4 of which Haruno tried to act like all his fans, it had simply become a habit for her. Taking a deep breath, Uchiha interrupted his thoughts and noticed the throbbing pain in his temples. He took one last long look at his teammate and went to the room where Naruto was already finishing his 10th dream. But Sasuke didn't sleep a wink the entire night. His head was filled with all sorts of thoughts that he simply couldn't ignore because of their importance and obscurity. He couldn't accept the fact that he still hadn't figured out what future Sasuke had clearly figured out. How is this even possible, this strange attack? Then we ended up in the future, and now there's Sakura from this time with the Uchiha clan crest on her back. Why her? Was there really no girl in the entire land of fire that the future me didn't love more? The guy thought. Lying on his back. Why did they send us here? Sakura was right, those lunatics knew us, which means they were hunting us from the start to send us to this time. But why the future? What benefit do they get from this? What nonsense. I need to try to fall asleep. Turning over onto his left side, he saw Naruto sprawled out on the bed near the opposite wall, having long since thrown his blanket onto the floor. Sasuke felt a little irritated by this carelessness of the Uzumaki, turned over onto his other side facing the wall and closed his eyes, hoping to fall asleep. But the events of the past day did not want to allow him to plunge into the world of dreams, again and again emerging in his memory. From early morning, a team of shinobi gathered in the Hokage's office to discuss the most important issue. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like they're not lying. I'm not sure, but I don't think they're dangerous, the pink-haired woman said. I've never heard of a technique that could transport people through time, Sasuke replied, looking at her. Do you think it's possible to fake their reaction to us? The kunoichi turned to her husband. Anything is possible, the man answered evasively, and then, grinning, added, and you know that very well yourself. What kind of dirty hints are these in my office? Naruto asked, looking first at the blushing Sakura, then at the grinning Sasuke, narrowing his eyes. I didn't hint at anything vulgar, Dobe, Uchiha said, returning his face to a calm expression. Well. Okay, that's all well and good, but let's get back to business. I agree with Sakura. I can't be absolutely sure that they really are from the past. But in any case, we need to find a solution to this problem as quickly as possible. If someone really needed to send us to the future, then they had some goal in mind and we need to find out what it was. After a pause, Uzumaki added, but there is something that doesn't give me peace. What are you talking about? Asked Kakashi, who had been silent until now. If they really are us, then why don't we remember anything about this journey? The Hokage replied. That's another reason why I don't trust them, Sasuke said. I understand what you're thinking and... How can I explain this? Sakura said thoughtfully and continued, you see, a cycle has to start somewhere, but since we haven't gone through the full cycle, we don't remember it. Also, if they were really sent here from the past, then there's another problem. What? Hatake made himself known again. Time travel works on a molecular level. They will soon begin to feel tired of everyday activities, and it will become more intense with each passing day. They cannot stay here for long or they will turn into, to put it mildly, nothing, the medic replied. Then we better find a way to send them back to the past quickly. That is, if they really are from there, Kakashi said. Yes. I will call them to me to explain the situation. Having said this, Naruto asked one of the assistants to inform the guests that he wanted to talk to them. The friend said goodbye and left, and Uzumaki remained to wait for Team 7 from the past. The Hokage told them about the consequences of time travel and that he had increased the number of shinobi who were tasked with searching for anything related to time travel. He also mentioned that these shinobi included all members of the current Team 7. And since his dear guests needed to conserve their strength, they could rest and not worry about anything. Although the shinobi understood that there was mistrust behind this concern, they did not blame anyone, because they themselves did not particularly trust the locals. Returning to the room, everyone was lost in their own thoughts. Although they doubted this world, no one denied that somewhere deep in their souls, sympathy for this, perhaps real future, was gradually emerging. It's calm here, everyone is happy. Naruto became Hokage and started a family, just like Sasuke. And Sakura now bears the surname Uchiha and, if my eyesight didn't deceive me, became the owner of the power of 100 seals. Surprisingly, all this. Kakashi thought to himself and didn't notice how he continued out loud. It looks more like a dream or genjutsu, in which we are shown the fulfillment of everything we dreamed of. I thought about that too, the brunette supported the sensei. No, I think we were really transported to the future. After all, in a dream or genjutsu, they would most likely show us that we have already achieved everything, and not that we will achieve it in some time. And the Hokage's words about the travel affecting our body are true. We must return as soon as possible, said the kunoichi. What if they don't have time to find a way to return us to the past? Naruto asked unexpectedly calmly, which surprised his comrades a little. Before that, he rarely thought so seriously about any problem. Then we'll find him ourselves, Uchiha replied. During the day, the former Haruno, having prepared lunch for her family, put half of it into special bento containers and went to the apartment of Team 7, who had arrived from the past. The 4 shinobi had not been in this time for even a day, so they had hardly had time to buy any food. That is why Sakura decided to cook a little more than usual this time and feed the unfortunate travelers. They had already had a hard day, they clearly still had not fully accepted what had happened, and it was not difficult for the Uchiha to take care of his comrades. In addition, she still needed to go to them to conduct an examination and, firstly, to make sure that they were real members of Team 7, and secondly, to assess their physical condition. Sakura was met at the door by Kakashi. He was not surprised by the woman's arrival, as the Hokage had warned them about the checkups she would conduct every 2 days. Hello, Kakashi-sensei, the Uchiha said cheerfully. I'm not sure you should call me that. Kakashi-sama? Less formal. Kakashi-san? Hatake looked at her as if he was trying to show with just one glance that he had long ago figured out her attempt to mock him, but, contrary to all expectations, this did not make the medic stop. Kakashi-kun? The man just sighed, shaking his head slightly. Okay, let's stop at the second to last option. The woman smiled contentedly at this and nodded, walking past the shinobi into the depths of the apartment. As you say. Having looked into every room and not finding anyone there, Sakura went to the kitchen, where 2 teenagers were sitting at the dining table. As soon as Naruto noticed Mrs. Uchiha, his face immediately seemed to glow, and his lips stretched into a wide, happy smile. Such a sharp change in his comrade's mood made Sasuke turn to the doorway and see who or what the Uzumaki was so happy about. Of course, seeing Sakura from this time, he was not at all surprised, most likely all because he understood that only one person could cause such a reaction in this dobe, in their case, too. Hello, Sasuke, Naruto, the former Haruno waved with a smile on her face and walked up to the table, unloading a bento bag. I brought you some food, after all, you hardly had time to stock up on groceries. Ah, thank you, you shouldn't have, Kakashi began to answer, but was interrupted. We were going to look for something like Ichiraku, Uchiha said rudely, not hiding, as usual, his displeasure at her appearance in his field of vision. Why look for it? Ichiraku remained in its rightful place, it just grew into a full-fledged restaurant thanks to Naruto, Sakura answered without being distracted from pouring food into the plates she had brought. Having placed their portion in front of everyone and not forgetting to leave something for the 4th member of the team, she took a free place at the table and continued with a grin, there are almost never any free places there, except at night. Since when did this eatery become so popular? Sasuke asked, without changing his gloomy tone. Ever since Naruto became famous throughout the world. 3 pairs of eyes turned to the blonde, who, with his cheeks full, was running his gaze from one comrade to another, trying to restore the long-lost thread of the conversation in his head. When the late breakfast was over, Sakura washed the dishes and hid them in one of the kitchen drawers, having warned the temporary inhabitants of the apartment in advance where exactly what was. Not forgetting to once again remind the male part of the team to be sure to feed the young kunoichi as soon as she returned from her walk, Uchiha began her inspection. Aren't you going to stay until she comes? Naruto asked, slightly indignant. Unfortunately, no. I have some other things to do today, Sakura answered without looking up from her work. What other business? As soon as the question was asked, the medic felt Sasuke exhale sharply, most likely holding back the urge to utter some kind of barbed retort in response, even though the question was not directed at him. My daughter should be home from the academy soon. I don't want her to come back to an empty apartment. She wasn't allowed to list the entire list of things to do. A daughter? Uzumaki asked loudly. So, you have a husband too? Then there is, Sakura answered with a laugh. The Jinchuriki's eyes lit up and he quickly asked the next question. Where is your husband? Most likely, he's still at the Hokage's residence, dealing with your case. Unlike the woman, Kakashi and Sasuke noticed Naruto's stupid, dreamy smile, so the next thing that could be heard in the room was the synchronous, heavy sigh of both. From the expression on the boy's face, one could easily guess that in 2 meetings with Sakura from this time, he never noticed the Uchiha clan mark on her back. And now, thanks to the vague, foursome answers, he pictures in his head a family dinner with his wife teammate and a girl with blonde hair and green eyes. I have a shift at the hospital tomorrow, so I think I'll ask one of the students to accompany Sakura to my office, or my daughter, she has a day off tomorrow anyway, Uchiha was already thinking out loud while putting on her shoes in the hallway. In general, please warn her. Well, that's it, see you later. Uchiha himself did not understand what caused this, but for some reason, when the former Haruno left their temporary shelter, he madly wanted Naruto to raise his eyes and finally notice what clan this woman now belonged to. He longed to see Uzumaki's reaction when he understood everything, but, unfortunately for Sasuke, the blonde continued to be in the clouds, and did not even say goodbye to the medic. Sarada was returning home from the academy. She noticed that many people were looking at her strangely all day. Rumors had been circulating in the village since yesterday evening that people who could travel through time had allegedly come to them. Some said that they wanted to change the future, some that they wanted to subjugate the world, and by traveling to different times, they were collecting the most powerful jutsu, and they condemned the Hokage for his excessive gullibility. Many were convinced that these guests were actually traveling through time, trying to maintain peace on Earth everywhere. Yes, people had never talked about such nonsense before. Rumors in the village are a common thing, which is why Sarada did not focus on someone's new invention, but simply laughed and forgot about it. Walking along the main street, the girl remembered that she had had lunch quite a while ago and was already very hungry. She was also damn tired today and, deciding to get home faster, quickened her pace. Suddenly, she noticed a pink-haired girl in the crowd. Instantly, memories of those rumors came to mind. Looking at the owner of the pink hair, she noticed that the girl was constantly looking around and even wanted to come up and offer help to the stranger, but quickly pulled herself back and continued on her way. When Sarada got close enough to the girl, as if feeling her burning gaze, turned around and met black and so familiar eyes. The stranger had a Konoha protector tied around her head instead of a headband, which made Uchiha frown, because she had never met anyone with such an appearance in their village before, except for her mother, Sakura Uchiha, but she would soon be 32, and this girl was maybe a couple of years older than Sarada herself. Suddenly, the future genin remembered a photograph that was very dear to both parents, in which they were captured together with the 7th and Kakashi-san, in the year of the formation of the 7th team. Oh, come on. Is this really true? Sarada thought, struck by the stranger's incredible resemblance to her mother. But as soon as she noticed her father ahead, thoughts about the strange pink-haired girl immediately faded into the background. Running up to the man, the young Uchiha began to enthusiastically tell him everything that had happened to her at the academy. When Sakura saw Sarada, she felt something strange, as if this girl was not a stranger to her. And surprised by such a feeling towards the stranger, Haruno tried to explain it to herself by the fact that she was very charming and beautiful. Not paying much attention to this and remembering why she left the apartment allocated to them by the Hokage, Sakura continued to look around the village, but hearing someone's unexpectedly loud happy chirping, the kunoichi turned in the direction from which it came. Her pupils narrowed sharply, her heart beat faster, and for a moment she even thought she forgot how to breathe. Sakura realized that the feeling towards the black-haired stranger arose for a reason, as soon as she saw the Uchiha clan crest on her back. Turning her gaze to the man the girl was talking to, she recognized him as Sasuke. Commentary on Chapter 5, rewritten. The chapter has been rewritten. Attention! Starting from this chapter, there may be some minor inconsistencies in the plot, as new events are added to existing chapters, and new chapters are created. Chapter 6, rewritten, Sasuke shrugged, feeling that someone was looking at him. He glanced at everyone who was in his field of vision at that moment, until he came across such familiar green eyes. The man listened to his daughter's story with half an ear, without breaking eye contact with his future wife. Only now did the thought appear in his head that something was missing in this girl's gaze, but he could not understand what exactly. It was difficult to think about anything when you look into eyes that involuntarily send you back in time. He had forgotten how she looked at him before the Chunin exam, before that point of no return, before she had to face the real problems of the shinobi world. Noticing that Sarada was silent, Sasuke turned his full attention to his daughter, who was looking back at him, clearly expecting him to do something. The man lifted the corners of his lips in a slight smile and ran the palm of his only hand over the Uchiha clan heiress's black hair, which was exactly the same as his own. The shinobi silently began to move towards Sakura, confident that his child would follow him. "What are you doing here?" Sasuke asked once he reached his destination, ignoring Haruno's hello. I decided to walk around Konoha. I wanted to see how much everything had changed here," the girl answered a little timidly, running her gaze from one Uchiha to another. She was very worried, which was noticeable by her raised, as if trying to shrink, shoulders. "Sakura was supposed to examine you today, has she come yet?" "She definitely didn't come before I left," the kunoichi answered, shaking her head slightly from side to side, as if to confirm her words. "How irresponsible. Mom already has so much work to do without forcing her to run after you all over the village to conduct an examination," Sarada snorted, expressing her dissatisfaction with the current situation. "Sorry," Haruno squeaked, lowering her head and crossing her fingers in front of her. She hadn't thought about it when she was about to go for a walk. Uchiha was about to respond to this, when the future medic's stomach growled quite loudly, causing a bashful blush to appear on the poor girl's face, and she tried to lower her head even lower, pressing her hands to her chest. Sarada just took a deep breath, exhaled sharply and started searching for something in her bag. Finding it, she handed it to Sakura. The kunoichi heard the rustling of the bag and looked up at the girl. Looking at her outstretched hand, Haruno saw a yakisoba pan dash. "I bought it for Cho-Cho, but she got sick, so you can eat it," Uchiha explained, watching as the pink-haired girl hesitantly took the bun from her hands. Thanking Sarada, the guest from the past unwrapped the treat and took a bite. She closed her eyes in pleasure and began to chew slowly to taste everything better, because if you think about it, the last time she ate was yesterday morning, before the mission. "We'll walk you to your apartment," Sasuke said, already taking the first step in the right direction. The girls had no choice but to follow him. They walked in silence. Only when saying goodbye did Sakura thank them both for seeing them off and for the treat. The man only nodded and started walking towards the house, and Sarada, catching up with him on the run, said, "Try not to miss any more checkups." She did not hear the answer, as she drew level with her father and hastened to ask the question that was worrying her. "Is it really true, and this girl is the mother from the past?" "It's not known for sure yet. Sakura had to conduct today's examination first of all to make sure whether they really are us, and then to assess the impact of the journey on their bodies," Sasuke answered calmly. "You know, I also thought that it was impossible, but I thought, you can travel to other dimensions with the help of the Rinnegan, and Kagaya Otsutsuki even created them, plus I remembered how the seventh, a long time ago, told Boruto and me about how he and his mother ended up in a parallel world." The man only chuckled at this, making it clear that he heard her and continued on his way. Mrs. Uchiha met them at the threshold of the apartment. It was not difficult to guess that she herself had just returned. The woman quickly greeted her husband and daughter and, putting her shoes straight, ran towards the kitchen. Sasuke and Sarada only exchanged glances, surprised by such behavior of the hostess, and followed her straight. The light in the room was not too bright, thanks to it the room seemed warm and created a feeling of coziness. Although, perhaps, it was not only the light that was to blame. Near the open refrigerator, slightly bent over, taking something out of it, dressed in a pink apron, stood Sakura. "I was hoping to have everything ready by the time you arrived, but I had to stay at the hospital and fill out some paperwork," the medic suddenly spoke up, stirring food in a hot frying pan. "By the way, Sarada, do you have any plans for tomorrow?" "No," Uchiha answered after a short pause and, narrowing her eyes a little, added, "For now." "Do you have any suggestions?" The owner of pink hair just grinned. After all, the mixture of her and Sasuke's characters gave an interesting result. "I wonder if her husband noticed it?" "Yes," the former Haruno replied. "I need you to escort someone to the hospital for a checkup. Can you handle it?" "Let me guess, is this somehow connected to those rumors that have been going around the village? That Team 7 from the past has appeared?" Sakura remained silent for the entire time it took her to plate the food and serve it. Taking her place across from the head of the family, she replied, "Yes." "So, are you taking it?" Sarada, as well as her father, immediately guessed who they were talking about, so she didn't really think about whether she should agree. She was sure that her mother would never in the world offer her something, knowing that there was even a small chance of harm to her daughter. In addition, the Uchiha always tried to help the woman in everything, if such an opportunity arose. Why not, especially since we have already met? Commentary on Chapter 6, rewritten. Yakisoba pan is a hot dog bun that contains yakisoba, fried noodles, often topped with sliced pink pickled ginger, instead of sausage. The chapter was added during the rewrite of the entire work. Chapter 7, rewritten. When Sasuke and Sarada's figures disappeared into the crowd, Sakura hurried to enter the Hokage's assigned apartment. In the hallway, she encountered her teammates' frowning gaze. "Who were you talking to?" The guy immediately started interrogating, which scared Haruno, causing her gaze to dart around the narrow room in confusion. It took her a couple of minutes to calm down and understand the motives behind his question. They were in the future, her team members were in the apartment, and Sakura's friends and acquaintances from the past were now 30. They had more important things to do than walk around the village with a teenager, which meant there weren't many options, or rather, none at all. Most likely, Sasuke was surprised, maybe even a little excited. For some reason she wanted to think so. She wanted him to worry about her, showing that he liked her in this way, but on the other hand, she scolded herself for such thoughts, because it was very selfish and at the same time she couldn't do anything about it. When the kunoichi thought about it, a question was born in her head: maybe she doesn't really love Sasuke? In her mind, love is a high feeling that makes one person care for another without expecting anything in return, a feeling that makes one want to protect a person from all troubles and worries, and not add them to him. Having come to this conclusion again, Sakura perked up and hurried to answer, although with each word her confidence, just like her voice, faded. "I met you as an adult and saw, that is, our daughter." At the last words, out of awkwardness, Haruno even lowered her head, blushing and looking at Uchiha with wide-open eyes. If only she knew how cute she looked at that moment. The whole situation embarrassed the guy terribly and made him look away, hoping that his future wife would not notice the slight blush on his cheeks. "Oh Kami, future wife," this phrase flashed through the genin's mind, causing his face to change color from pale pink to coral. "Go to the kitchen, those two are already there," Sasuke said, abruptly turning his back to his teammate and disappearing behind the door leading to the bathroom. The girl had no choice but to follow her friend's advice and go into the room where they were apparently already waiting for her, as evidenced by the table set for 4 people. As soon as she appeared on the threshold, an excited cry was heard from the blonde, restless shinobi. "Sakura-chan, you're finally back. Can you imagine, Sakura-chan came to visit us, not you, but another one, an adult. She brought us food, it was very tasty. I haven't eaten like that for a long time, and told us that she has a husband and a daughter. Can you imagine? And she also..." Naruto talked a lot, but everything he told next went past the kunoichi's ears. Her head was again filled with thoughts, from which a throbbing pain appeared in her temples, but she could not stop thinking, so she continued to torment her pink-haired head, while Uzumaki continued to tell about the past day, until Sasuke joined them, until dinner was over and until everyone dispersed to their rooms. Only then did she allow herself to be distracted from the rather annoying thoughts and switch to a conversation with the team captain. Kakashi listened attentively to Sakura's impressions of the Konoha of the future and the people she had met. The man was glad to distract the girl from her thoughts, because of which she had missed their discussion of the plan of further action. He also saw how sometimes, during Naruto's incoherent chatter, the Uchiha also allowed himself to fall out of reality, but, apparently, he knew how to control this moment and did not overload himself too much. That was why Hitaki decided to come to the aid of his student, so that at least she could sleep peacefully. At the request of the Hokage, immediately after examining the male half of Team 7, filling out patient cards to record and monitor the physical condition of the shinobi who had arrived from the past, Sakura personally gave a report on the work done and the results of the examination, and also did not forget about the conclusion of the head doctor, that is, her own. It was on the last point that Uzumaki's gaze caught, and after a couple of seconds, he sighed and put the folder on the table, still not taking his eyes off the last lines. The examination confirmed that all the male representatives of the team from the past really are who they say they are. In the evening, Naruto was sitting in his office and thinking about who might need to send them to the future. There were many options, but none seemed plausible to him. The man tried to remember who one of their team members could have crossed while still genin, and came to the conclusion that, apart from Kakashi, the enemy could not take revenge on anyone else from the four of them at that time. After all, they hadn't really completed any normal missions, which meant they hadn't managed to make any enemies yet. He also assumed that the reason could be in the Uchiha, they could take revenge on the whole clan, but since Sasuke was its only representative at that time who could be taken revenge, the wrath of the enemies fell on him. It was clear that the attack was caused by one person, the rest were removed as witnesses. But why they chose this particular method is unclear. But they had to act quickly without delay, because, according to Sakura, they didn't have much time. Almost 2 days had passed since Team 7 from the past had arrived in the future. Immediately after studying his friend's report, Naruto called Shikamaru to him to discuss everything and make the right decision. In the end, both agreed that in this case it was necessary to provide protection to the guests and find a way to return them back. Thus, it was decided to send several ANBU squads with the task of searching for information about the technology with which it is possible to travel in time or capable of returning the 7th team to the past. It was hard to believe, but the fate of not only their team, but the entire world now depends only on the people who are part of these squads. Commentary on Chapter 7, rewritten. The chapter was added during the rewriting of the work. Chapter 8, rewritten. In the morning, they were awakened by persistent knocking at the door. The guest was a dark-haired girl, whom only Sakura seemed to recognize. "What are you doing here?" she asked when the kunoichi Kakashi kindly let her into the apartment, having arrived early in the morning. "I came for you. Mom asked me to accompany you to the hospital for an examination." "Ah. So you're Sakura-chan's daughter?" Naruto shouted out his guess, which scared his teammate well. Taking a look at Uzumaki, who stood before her in a black crumpled t-shirt, orange short pants, with disheveled hair and dried drool on his cheek, Sarada noted to herself that this boy didn't really look like the 7th, there was more of something Boruto-like about him. Like father, like son, flashed through her mind. And yet, throwing her thoughts aside, the kunoichi answered. "Yes." She then glanced briefly at Sakura and turned to the door. "Let's go." Haruno had no choice but to follow the Uchiha. She didn't dare ask Sarada to give her time to at least wash up, let alone have breakfast. Haruno decided that if the future her asked her to accompany her to the hospital so early, it meant that she simply didn't have another free minute. Sarada walked silently, which made Sakura a little nervous. She was worried that her stomach would make itself known again. The last thing she wanted was to blush in front of her future daughter again. Besides, it was unlikely that she would have any treats this time either. Half of the way was already behind. When Haruno decided to start a conversation, she did not know how to start a conversation with new people, because all her acquaintances and friends studied with her at the academy or were introduced to them by Ino. Therefore, having carefully examined her companion from head to toe and noticing the protector on her head, Sakura asked a question, the answer to which she did not need at all, but it was the only thing that came to her mind at that moment. "Are you a genin already?" Her voice sounded so quiet and uncertain, it seemed Sarada hadn't heard anything, but she still looked at her companion as if asking, "Are you serious?" and, after a moment's hesitation, answered, "Yes." "Have you already taken the Chunin exam?" Sakura asked. "No." Sarada couldn't get used to the idea that this quiet, scared girl was her mother. How could that be? Sakura Uchiha was the smartest, the strongest, bravest medic in the world. She always spoke loudly, confidently. Sometimes, with just one word, the woman could make her scared to death. With just one little finger, she could split the mountain with the Hokage monument into pieces. If the pink-haired girl walking behind her really was Sakura Uchiha, at that time, still Haruno, then it was hard to even imagine what she went through to become the person Sarada knew. And you, she decided to ask a counter question. Yes, but I was eliminated after the second stage of the qualifying sparring. Sasuke-kun and Naruto reached the third stage. The guest from the past wondered whether she should finish the story, or Sarada asked just out of politeness, but not wanting to go in silence, she continued. During Sasuke-kun's fight with the boy from Sand, Suna attacked the village and they did not continue the exam. Except for Shikamaru, no one else became a Chunin. Uchiha silently considered the information she had received. Sakura wondered if she had told too much or, on the contrary, too little, and dryly, when they finally approached the entrance to the hospital. Having accompanied Haruno to the door of her mother's office and not forgetting to notify the medic himself, Sarada immediately hurried off to her business. "Hello, come in," Sakura heard from the office and hurried in. The room was quite spacious. On the right by the wall there was a small green sofa, above which hung a shelf overflowing with books. Next to it stood a cabinet, the upper shelves of which were also filled with books and various scrolls, and on the lower ones there were multicolored and transparent flasks, apparently with medicines. Opposite the door there was a desk, behind which sat the owner of the office. Behind her there was a window almost wide open, occupying most of the wall. On the left Sakura found a couch, on which the future her invited her to sit. "Well," the woman said, approaching the patient, "don't be afraid or worried, I'll just examine you with chakra to check how time travel affects your body." She brought her hand up and stopped near Haruno's chest. The girl saw how her palm was covered with a pleasant green glow, and along with this glow, warmth seemed to begin to penetrate into her body. Sakura couldn't tear her eyes away from this process. The woman smoothly moved her hand near her body, without even touching her, but the girl was filled with a feeling of pleasant relaxation, as if after a long and hard day, she finally plunged into a bath of warm water. Unfortunately, this did not last long, and having finished with the examination, the Uchiha returned to her desk and immediately began to fill out some document. "Everything is fine at the moment. I haven't noticed any deviations from the norm," she said with a slight smile on her face. Sakura wanted to know how often such checkups would take place, but this desire suddenly disappeared as soon as a large black figure appeared in the window opening from nowhere. She recognized him. Of course, it was Sasuke Uchiha. He looked exactly the same as yesterday, in the same cloak. At first, Haruno decided that he had just returned from a mission, which is why he was wearing this cloak, but as it turned out, it was just part of his attire, since he even visited his wife like this. The extreme thought made Sakura's cheeks blush. She still had a hard time believing that her lifelong dream of becoming Sasuke-kun's wife would come true in the future. "I wonder how Sasuke-kun himself reacted to this news." "Did something happen?" asked Mrs. Uchiha. Sakura decided that the woman had noticed a change in the patient's behavior and decided to find out what it was connected with, when suddenly the man spoke. "You forgot," he said, and with a quiet knock placed a bento box wrapped in a light green cloth on the edge of the table. "Thank you, dear," his wife replied, not looking up from filling out the paperwork. "You could have asked Sarada to tell me, she came to see me a few minutes ago." The man didn't answer. Just glanced at the little version of Sakura, then at his wife, and headed back to the window. "Are you here to see Naruto?" the woman asked. "Yes." Uchiha took the document from the table that she had been filling out all this time, walked up to her husband, who was standing by the window, throwing his right leg over the windowsill, and handed him a couple of sheets of paper tied together. "Please tell him." Sasuke just nodded and disappeared in an instant. The woman walked up to the table, opened the bento box and placed it on the opposite side of the table from herself. "Help yourself, you're hungry," she said to Sakura with the same smile on her face. Commentary on Chapter 8, rewritten. The chapter was added during the rewriting of the work. I demand a normal mission. The sun hasn't even risen yet, and the Hokage already has a lot on his plate. At the moment, he's trying to calm down one Jinchuriki and get rid of that noisy boy under the pretext of a mission. I am the only one who can make demands here. You were given a mission, rejoice, but if you continue to get on my nerves, I will send you back to the academy. A woman with amber eyes and light hair tied into 2 low ponytails sat at a table in a spacious office. Opposite her stood Team 7, consisting of 4 people. A pink-haired kunoichi with emerald eyes, Sakura Haruno, a brunette with tousled hair at the back of his head and black eyes, Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, a blue-eyed blonde with 3 strange stripes on each cheek, and, finally, the captain of this team, Kakashi Hatake, who was always buried in his favorite book with suspicious content. And I say that I will not carry out this mission. How much longer? How long will you make us munch on grass? I am a ninja, the future Hokage, not a lawn mower. The blonde leaned his hands on the table. There's nothing to be done. Everyone goes through this. So go ahead and sing. The woman was already getting pretty fed up with the current situation, which unfolded every time these 4 appeared in her office. I don't understand you, Granny. You saw for yourself what I'm capable of, so why are you giving me such an easy task? I demand a minimum A rank mission. Naruto.